Hey, y'all, it's Rick here with Uncommon Communion. Glad that you are with us on a Tuesday afternoon. Just wanted to do a recording before I head out this evening for a soccer game. Always a fun place to go. And I also should say it's Happy International Tiger Day. And I hope you are having a good one. Let's begin as we always begin by recognizing, realizing, affirming, and celebrating that we are always and everywhere in the holy presence of God and each other. I want to share two different metaphors that I encountered in the reading that I did each morning, uh, that I did this morning, the readings that I do each morning. And it is about holes or places of separation. And each one is a little bit different. And in some ways, they're kind of opposites. But I think each of them can give us insight into a way that we can understand our relationship with God and also how we can relate to ourselves and how God relates to us. So perhaps a lot of ground to cover in a short video, but here goes. So, the first that I want to share is the prayer that came today from the Centering Prayer book that I have shared from before. And this one is a little bit longer. Sometimes they're kind of short. This one is kind of on the medium side. And here's what it says for today. It says, Holy Spirit of God, your grace finds the seam in my heart and follows it to the places waiting to be opened further by your love. Lead me today by your gentle wisdom, guiding my way in commerce and culture. In this silent surrender, I receive everything I need to face the next challenge. May your grace work the seams in my heart, expanding my feeling of I to include the reality of you. So, seams, something that maybe doesn't come up a lot in our day to day thinking, but something really important because, as you likely know, a seam is where two separate things come together. And the seam is actually the middle part, the material or the stitch that holds the two parts together. What I think is interesting about this is it says that God's grace, your grace, finds this seam within my heart. And then it follows that to the places waiting to be opened further by your love. So, what might this be getting at? Well, it has to do with this idea that the seam is connecting something. And what is that something, right? Maybe it is body and soul. Maybe it is our nature as physical beings and our nature as spiritual beings. Maybe it is my altruistic self compared to my selfish self. Regardless, there is some kind of binding or sealing that is being described here in this prayer. And by following that, allowing God to follow that, it takes us to a place where it can be further opened by God's love, right? And then at the end, it says, expand your grace to expand the seams in my heart, to work the seams, expanding that my feeling of I to include the reality of you. So desiring this openness or this opening so that the I and the God become less and less separated and more integrated. So a great image, and hold that one. Let's shift over to Father Richard Rohr's reflection for the day. And I've shared about this numerous times. And actually, I shared about this very recently. This week, he is talking about, I think, a very profound topic, which is embracing our imperfection. And today's reflection is entitled, Worthiness is Not the Way. And he talks about Teresa of Lisieux and her little way, and talking about how God does not demand perfection. God demands our humility and God demands our authenticity, right? And he says, Father Richard says, worthiness is not the issue. The issue is trust and surrender. As Therese understood, Jesus, quote, Jesus does not demand great actions from us, but simply surrender and gratitude. Father Richard goes on to say, let's resolve this once and for all. You're not worthy. None of us are. That worthiness road is a game of denial and pretend. We're all saved by grace. We're all being loved in spite of ourselves. That's why I can say you're all worthy, but your worthiness has nothing to do with you and everything to do with the goodness of God. He then pivots to quote from the well-known author and speaker and podcaster, video maker, Brene Brown. And she talks again about this same notion of our imperfection. And she brings in an image that has always been a favorite one. In fact, it's funny, I heard this lyric as just a quote, and I never knew the song until one day I was listening to some of Leonard Cohen's music, and the song Anthem came up, and that's where this lyric is from. And it was just like, whoa, that's where this came from. And it was just a real wonderful moment of recognition and connection and gratitude. And she says, this is quoting Brene Brown, she says, there is a line from Leonard Cohen's song Anthem that serves as a reminder to me when I'm trying to control everything and make it perfect. The line is, there is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. This line helps me remember the beauty of the cracks. It reminds me that our imperfections are not inadequacies. They are reminders that we are in this together, imperfectly, but together. So we have the crack, right? The part of us that is broken, incomplete, but as Cohen sings, and really it's kind of a speak song as some of his music is, he says, there is a crack in everything. He says, ring the bells, it still will ring. There is a crack in everything. That's where the light gets in. So we have this crack, this place of brokenness where God's light and love and grace can come in our imperfection. And we also have the other image of the seam, right? And maybe they're not two separate images. Maybe the seam is our life journey, the way that we have been on. And we have these different parts of our life, these different aspects of our life. And that seam is God's presence that is binding our life together. But where does that seam lead? And how can we get to those deeper places where we are reminded again in that prayer of those deeper places where that I can expand, God will expand my feeling of I to include the reality of you, God. Well, I think that's the crack, right? It's leading those seams, our life journey is leading to that crack. And when we embrace that crack, when we hold onto that crack as sacred, not try to cover it up or hide it, to allow grace to flow in and healing presence and love and goodness and compassion to flow out from our brokenness, that is where we can be the light of Christ in the world, right? Because remember, Christ says two seemingly contradictory things in the scriptures. I am the light of the world, and you are the light of the world. Different gospels, different contexts, but same idea. And that is what I think that is about, is Christ, when we are open and honest, Christ shines into the crack, and from that crack shines forth Christ's light, that we can be light to each other. So I conclude with yesterday's prayer, and there's a great line in this one, and I share this with you as our prayer as we conclude this time together. God who brings joy, touch my heartstrings and make your song come to life in me. I am chased by your joy into new territory. You have such a way with your extravagance. What can I say? Phrases like, here I am, Lord, and let it be in me, Lord, come to mind. Turn my darkest howls into shouts of Hosanna. You have a way of making me your miracle. I can see it with hindsight. Always you were there, here, among the silence, infinite possibilities abounding. Well, thank you all for joining me today. I hope you can find that seam of your life, the journey you have been on, the journey that you continue on, and see that that seam is God, God's presence always accompanying you through that journey, and recognizing those cracks, not hiding them, not covering them up, not trying to plaster them over, but embracing them and recognizing that it is into that crack that the light comes, and it is from that crack that the transformed and amplified and radiant light shines forth. Thanks, y'all, for being here. Blessing and good. Be gentle. Be well.